A man who goes by the surname Dean for fear of repercussions against his family in China shared his story. He previously worked in construction and faced financial hardships in China, making survival challenging. He embarked on a 42-day journey through South America to reach the United States. This journey was grueling, taking a toll on everyone both emotionally and physically, resulting in numerous blisters on their feet. Another individual, who identified himself as Wang but withheld his full name as his parents still reside in China, explained his reasons for leaving his homeland. He expressed his lack of hope for China's future and the belief that conditions were deteriorating, harkening back to the era of the Cultural Revolution. He acknowledged that his professional qualifications from China might not be recognized in the United States, which might necessitate taking low-level jobs alongside Americans. While not his preferred path, he had mentally prepared for this possibility. While it's common to see Latino migrants crossing the Rio Grande, which divides Mexico from the U.S., what's less common is witnessing Chinese migrants undertaking the same perilous journey. One woman mentioned that it took her an entire month to reach her destination. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, there has been a significant increase in the number of Chinese migrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Nearly 10,000 made the journey on foot from October to April, compared to just over 2,000 in the previous fiscal year.
我们在
Dr. Wu
VOA 这个
Qiang, a
节目平
political
台上来
science
跟所
doctor
有的
of
观众来
philosophy
讨
and
论这个和平
independent
发展的
political
问题。那
consultant
么
from
讨
Beijing,
论发展，那
Dr.
显
Wu
然
Qiang
我们过
shares
去已
his
经讨论了很
perspective,
多，在过去3年疫情
emphasizing
之
the
后，
impact of China's
中
economic
国
challenges,
中下阶
particularly
级
affecting the middle
中下
and
阶级，
lower
他们不是底
classes
层阶级，
after the
相当多中下
COVID-19
阶级是面
pandemic.
临
The
着
difficulties faced by this
这个
demographic,
上升
including
困难，
economic
面临着
hardships
经
and
济的困
bankruptcy
难。
of
中
small
小
and
企业
micro
主的大量
enterprises,
中小企
are
业大量
driving
特
them
别
to
小
seek
微企业的大量
opportunities
破产。
abroad, with North America
那
being a
么这
destination
种
of choice. According to data released by the U.S. government, from October 2022 to the present, the number of Chinese citizens arrested at the U.S.-Mexico border has exceeded 6,500, which is more than a 15-fold increase compared to the same period last year, reaching a historic high. Surge in Chinese illegal migration to the United States. 15-fold increase from January to September, according to a report by the Associated Press on October 30. The Panamanian immigration authorities revealed that Chinese nationals have become the fourth largest group to cross the Darien Gap during the first 9 months of this year. Following Venezuelans, Ecuadorians, and Haitians, Chinese migrants typically first fly to Ecuador and then travel north to reach the U.S.-Mexico border. As more people leave China, the numbers are expected to increase. The United Nations estimates that China's population will decrease by 310,000 due to emigration this year, compared to 120,000 in 2012. Kai Sher, former professor at the Central Party School of the Chinese Communist Party and current editor-in-chief of the online commenting site, stated, "This wave of migration reflects desperation with China." She said, "They have lost hope for the country's future. You can see that among them. There are educated and uneducated individuals, white-collar workers, small business owners, and even people from the affluent class. Many people enter the United States from the San Diego area. In September of this year, 98% of the apprehended illegal border crossers in the San Diego-Mexico border region were Chinese. Some of the Chinese migrants entering the United States from San Diego wait between two border walls in remote areas covered with brush and large rocks in the eastern part of the city. There, they await Border Patrol agents to pick them up. They wait there to turn themselves in to U.S. authorities and apply for asylum. Many Chinese migrants opt for a similar route, flying from China to Turkey and then to Ecuador due to its more lenient visa policy. From there, they travel by foot and bus through South and Central America, with some seeking guidance from guides or asking for directions along the way. The Chinese embassy responded to VOA's inquiry by stating that the Chinese government consistently opposes illegal immigration and has implemented various measures to prevent such unauthorized departures. A video produced by VOA, a Mandarin, became a sensation on Chinese social media, prompting the former editor-in-chief of China's state-run Global Times to comment on Weibo. He noted that China is progressing rapidly and a majority of Chinese citizens no longer need to resort to the risks associated with crossing the border. Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley reported that around a month ago, approximately 100 Chinese migrants per day were arriving at their shelter in Texas. A man from Shanghai who made the journey with his wife and daughter used a pseudonym due to concerns about retaliation from the Chinese government. He emphasized that all Chinese citizens are aware of the immense power and control exerted by their government. Some migrants shared that they learned about the South American route through posts on Douyin, the Chinese equivalent of TikTok. Those who had completed the journey provided advice on what to carry, where to meet buses, and where to find restroom facilities and food. Over the past decade, after Xi Jinping took office, the number of Chinese people applying for immigration and seeking foreign asylum has been steadily increasing. Some do it for economic reasons as life in China has become increasingly challenging, and they seek a chance for a better life abroad. Others do it for political reasons, as they may have expressed discontent with the government and face tea-drinking sessions with the public security authorities. In the last 2 to 3 years, stringent pandemic lockdowns and ongoing political tightening have accelerated the immigration trend, with many people looking for opportunities to move abroad. Among them, the United States has always been the preferred destination for Chinese immigrants, primarily because of its relatively lenient immigration policies and better job prospects. In the past, Chinese immigration to the United States typically occurred through legal channels, such as studying, working, obtaining residency, or overstaying a tourist visa, commonly referred to as jumping ship. However, in the last 2 to 3 years, the number of those choosing smuggling as a means of entry has significantly increased. So, what has happened to cause this change? The surge in the number of smuggling cases is closely related to the I-visa issue between China and the United States. U.S. government data shows that in 2021, 80% of Chinese citizens' applications for U.S. tourist visas were rejected. In 2022, over 30% of applications were denied, the highest in history for 2 years. Even though the global issuance of visas by the U.S. has returned to pre-pandemic levels, the number of visas issued to Chinese citizens is still 90% lower than before the pandemic. In simple terms, at present, the U.S. is not very willing to grant visas to Chinese citizens, especially those with lower income and education levels, making it extremely difficult to obtain a U.S. visa. This has led many to start looking for alternative ways to enter the United States. During this period, social media platforms like TikTok began to feature many smuggling tutorials, instructing people on how to travel from Central and South America all the way to the U.S.-Mexico border. This journey is also known as the route. Just by searching for this hashtag, you can find plenty of content that provides detailed guidance on how to plan the route, what kind of shoes to wear, how to deal with human traffickers, and what the going rate is for bribing local police, among other details. As a result, many people who watched these tutorials decided to take the chance to fly halfway around the world in pursuit of their American dream. Zhang
都有生命
Suguang,
危
an
险。
independent
那么
commentator
在
and host of
在
the
这个路
Suguang
途中呢，还有
commentary,
劫匪，
Zhang
还
Suguang
有这
adds
个贪污的
insights into
官
the
员
arduous journey
所
of
以
these
这些人呢，
migrants,
不仅要付
highlighting
金
the
钱的代
risks of
价，
crossing
也
tropical
要
rainforests,
担负一
deserts,
定
and
程度的
treacherous
生命危
rivers.
险。
He
所
applauds
以
their
呢，从
courage
某种
and
角度来讲，我想，
determination,
他们
emphasizing
是
that
勇
many
敢的人
embark
啊，
on
他
this
们追
journey to
求
pursue a
一
better
种
life and
幸福的
political
生活，
freedom, as
追
they
求一
feel the
种
Chinese government's
政
policies
治
are
上的
limiting their
这种
prospects. The start of the smuggling journeys. The first stage of the smuggling journey is to leave China. During the pandemic, the Chinese government restricted the issuance of passports and only allowed people studying, working, or doing business abroad to apply. Many people had to fabricate various reasons to leave the country. For example, some purchased forged acceptance letters from foreign universities online and claimed to be going abroad to study or work when going through customs, successfully deceiving customs officials. They flew out and then took several connecting flights to reach Ecuador, the only country that does not require a visa for Chinese nationals, which serves as the starting point for the smuggling journey. At this point, the U.S. border is still 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers away. Subsequently, these Chinese immigrants join the larger migrant groups in Central and South America, either on foot or using other modes of transportation, attempting to reach the U.S.-Mexico border. However, this route is extremely dangerous. the treacherous journeys along the smuggling route, individuals often have to deal with human traffickers, criminal gangs, and especially in the infamous Darien Gap, a deadly jungle crossing that connects Panama to Central and South America. This is one of the most popular and dangerous smuggling routes in the world. SARS team, the Darien Gap is an undeveloped and pristine rainforest with no roads. Everyone must carry their belongings and walk for several days. In addition to enduring muddy tropical rainforests, they also have to navigate swift rivers and steep cliffs. One misstep can lead to a fatal accident. Moreover, within the deep jungle, there are many local drug traffickers and bandits who wait to rob and loot the migrants. Those who have passed through the Darien Gap have reported witnessing unidentified bodies lying on the side of the road. Many sections of the jungle also carry the stench of rotting corpses, hinting at the presence of bodies. According to data from the International Organization for Migration, at least 36 people died at the Darien Gap last year, but the actual number is likely much higher. For a long road to the United States after passing through the Darien Gap, the difficulties are far from over, and the next stages of the journey are also incredibly arduous. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, a Chinese illegal immigrant named Mr. Huang stated that after crossing the Darien Gap, he used boats and other means of transportation to travel through several Central American countries, spending a considerable amount of time to reach Mexico. Once in Mexico, he initially boarded a bus to continue heading north, but the bus was intercepted by the authorities, and the passengers, including Mr. Huang, were arrested. The Chinese illegal immigrants detained by U.S. Border Patrol agents do not intend to evade capture. They deliberately seek out the authorities and request asylum, claiming that they fear persecution in China. According to data from the U.S. Department of Justice, approximately 58% of Chinese citizens who apply for asylum are granted asylum in the United States. Therefore, in a certain sense, the illegal immigrants from China who arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border can be said to be using a kind of legal gray area to seek asylum. Why are there so many Chinese people seeking a future abroad? The primary motive for fleeing is to evade detrimental policies. Many Chinese seeking asylum reference the oppressive regime of Xi Jinping as their main reason for leaving. However, the more immediate catalyst for most is the severe zero-COVID measures in China. The outbreak of COVID in Wuhan towards the end of 2019 led to the Chinese authorities implementing strict lockdowns and restrictions to combat the virus. Xi championed the zero-COVID approach as the sole method for handling the pandemic, while other nations gradually relaxed their restrictions and opened up. China's stringent measures persisted well into 2022. Millions were confined to their residences for extended periods, only permitted to leave for compulsory COVID testing. Small numbers of COVID cases led to the enforced quarantine of entire communities. In instances where a family member tested positive, children were taken away from their parents. Accessing food and healthcare became increasingly challenging. Community groups emerged to supply food to those in lockdown. Social media was flooded with videos of individuals crying out for assistance from their apartment windows. Nevertheless, those fleeing China prefer facing the risks of detention centers and long asylum processes in foreign countries to the oppressive certainty back home. Ms. Xu, in a statement to The Guardian from Colombia, likened their situation to animals migrating to warmer climates to avoid freezing to death, saying, "We don't want to be frozen to death." The second is economic migration as a driving factor. This period marked a heightened sense of uncertainty, particularly among the young and educated in China. Despite higher education levels, their economic outlook has deteriorated. Urban youth unemployment, especially among those aged 16 to 24, has soared to a staggering 46.5%. Intense competition for scarce white-collar roles has left many graduates facing prolonged instability. A significant number have become Ken Laozus, or those dependent on their parents for financial support, often into their 30s and 40s. Absent any state welfare or unemployment benefits, their financial cushion is minimal. The combined burden of high living costs and grim employment prospects has rendered emigration a tempting alternative. The lifting of most of China's pandemic restrictions in December 2022 triggered a surge in international travel. On the day the borders reopened, there was a massive spike in flight searches to countries like the US, Australia, and Thailand. However, the aftermath of both economic hardship and oppressive measures persists. Many, having lost their jobs and savings during lockdowns, now grapple with poverty and debt. Additionally, the ongoing fear of arbitrary detention, particularly in places like Xinjiang and other minority areas, remains a significant concern. Chinese asylum seekers in the U.S. on temporary visas continue to worry about political persecution if they are forced to return. Some suspect that police pressure has led their relatives in China to sever ties, a tactic possibly aimed at coercing their return. With their prospects in China diminished, these asylum seekers are hopeful of securing refugee status overseas. However, the likelihood of this happening is decreasing. The approval rate for U.S. asylum applications from Chinese nationals has plummeted from over 90% to below 20% in the past decade, amidst a surge in applications. Now, applicants face waiting periods extending beyond 5 years. Third is the pursuit of liberty. Apart from economic motivations, the escalating authoritarian grip in China has led to widespread unease, particularly among the intellectual, academic, activist communities. The country has seen a significant contraction in the scope for free speech and civil liberties. Individuals who express strong criticism of the government often face intimidation, censorship, or even arrest. The government exerts control over various aspects of life, ranging from social media platforms to religious practices. Advanced surveillance systems, including facial recognition technology, monitor the daily lives of citizens. Regions like Xinjiang and Tibet are under strict control, with repressive measures imposed on Uyghur Muslims and Tibetan Buddhists. The autonomy and freedoms once enjoyed by Hong Kong have significantly diminished, especially after the suppression of protests. In China, avoiding the extensive government surveillance and control is increasingly difficult. Those desiring greater political, religious, or social freedom find themselves severely restricted. For those who advocate for liberal ideas, belong to ethnic minorities, or are part of marginalized groups, emigrating appears to be the sole viable option. Xi Jinping's ascension to power in 2012 marked the beginning of an unexpected shift towards stringent authoritarianism. Over the last decade, Xi has concentrated power in his hands, eliminating political rivals and silencing dissent. He abolished presidential term limits, setting the stage for his indefinite rule. Under Xi's regime, the Chinese government has aggressively suppressed any challenge to its authority. This includes detaining over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in re-education camps in Xinjiang, stifling pro-democracy movements in Hong Kong through severe national security legislation, dismissing elected opposition members from Hong Kong's legislature, and escalating threats against the democratically governed Taiwan. China's elite moving wealth abroad to protect assets from CCP exploitation, says Prince Lin.
恨的这种垃圾，去180多个国家不要签证的，去中国，我排队排了3个钟头才拿回来，垃圾。
这次回来总算是净身出国了，处理了国内的所有的资产。之前车已经卖了，这次过来把房子也处理了。因为北京的二手房现在跌得太猛，从今年2月份的相对高点一路跌到现在，政策也不明朗，市场。
The powerful descendants of veteran high-ranking Chinese Communist Party officials, known as princelings, are scrambling to move their substantial assets out of China. This capital flight is driven by tensions among political factions under Xi Jinping's authoritarian rule, as his anti-corruption campaigns encroach on the interests of the privileged CCP elite. Princelings have enjoyed special status, wealth, and influence for generations, but now they fear losing everything as Xi consolidates power through purging rivals. We are trying to move money out of China to prevent our assets from falling prey to CCP exploitation, said Fang Ming, a CCP princeling living abroad using a pseudonym. Two main factions have emerged in the CCP under the reform and opening up policy since Deng Xiaoping. The princelings represent business interests in the emerging wealthy class, while the Youth League faction has grassroots reformist backgrounds. But both are now in Xi's crosshairs despite their connections to former top officials. Xi follows Maoist principles, diverging from the openness advocated by Dini and others. Defense Minister Li Shangfu, son of a former military official, is a recent example of a fallen princeling removed from his post in October. Li was implicated in a corruption probe, signaling Xi's distrust even of top brass. Shakeups in the rocket force point to paranoia over possible cups against Xi. Rather than protecting the privileged class, Xi's draconian COVID policies and crackdowns on tech giants have led to economic decline. Princelings have no ability to challenge Xi and see overseas assets as the only way to preserve wealth. Capital outflows have surged since 2018, using clandestine channels to evade China's $50,000 per person limit. Small sums under $130,000 use intermediary accounts that are quickly emptied and closed. Sums up to $1.3 million exploit shell company accounts that are soon deregistered. Over $1.3 million uses a special cross-border bank transfer system not available to the public. Besides princelings, tycoons and middle-class Chinese are also fleeing, risking the economy. Several prominent princelings have already been purged. Hu Diping, son of former leader Hu Yaobang, had his reformist magazine seized by authorities. Real estate tycoon Ren Jiqiang was jailed for 18 years for criticizing Xi. Ant Bang chairman Wu Selhui, former grandson-in-law of Deng Xiaoping, was jailed for 18 years. Rumors suggest General Liu Zhichao could face harsh punishment. With overseas assets, princelings aim to weather the Xi era and await a possible post-Xi leadership more aligned with their interest in openness and protecting the privileged class. But their capital flight is accelerating China's economic decline. For now, the princelings have no power to directly challenge Xi's radical policies and consolidation of control through purgers.